Allah. Dear sisters, let us learn of Rasulullah. Dear sisters, let's make the future bright. Dear sisters, mothers, daughters and wives. Dear sisters, let us get closer to Allah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear sisters in Islam. Welcome to a new live episode of our program, Dear Sisters. First of all, I'd like to apologize for our delay because of some technical difficulties that we had. We apologize for being a few minutes late to start this live program. As always, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, I'm joined in the studio live with Sheikh Ibrahim Zidan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you doing this afternoon?
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. We're approaching Ramadan. We're just, 19 or 18 days away from Ramadan. Tonight, inshallah, we want to have some special advice for our dear sisters when it comes to Ramadan issues, bi'idhnillah ta'ala. And my dear sisters, inshallah, throughout the week, feel free to continue sending us your emails at dearsisters@huda.tv. dearsisters@huda.tv. I've learned just today that there were some technical difficulties with the email, and I've requested from the brothers working on the technical side to make sure that the email is working correctly, inshallah. So hopefully right now when you send us an email, it should be working at dearsisters@huda.tv. You can also, inshallah, send us a message on our Facebook page at facebook.com/dearsistershudatv. Or, of course, the most important way you can call us right now, inshallah, is through our phone lines at 002-0238-555, 248 or 249. 002-0238-555, 248 or 249. And, of course, our newly developed Skype. You can call us through Skype, inshallah, at Huda_TV. Huda_TV. Beginning right now, inshallah, we'll start answering your question, and we'll take some pending questions that we've received throughout the past week and the week before, inshallah. Sheikh Ibrahim, is there special preparation for the Muslim sister when it comes to the month of Ramadan?
Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. First, something, if it's very major and very important and very benefiting, if something is big, anything, a person has to prepare for it. If a person rushes into something that is so important, he would miss so much out of that thing that is so important. You can just make it for anything that people do in this worldly life that we live in.
If you have a big exam, you're going to prepare for it for a long time.
If you just go to the exam right away, you will fail. The same thing when it comes to religious practice. The day of Jumu'ah, the day of Friday, is such a blessed day with so much rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but for certain things to be done on Jumu'ah. One of the early generations of Islam, when he said, if a person comes in the morning of the day of Jumu'ah and says, what day is this? And then he was told it was Friday, it's too late. So he has to prepare for it the day before or something like this. The same thing when it comes to the month of Ramadan. First, we need to know how important is the month of Ramadan. And if a believer knows the importance of Ramadan and what's the rewards in the month of Ramadan, then definitely we would prepare for it, not just now, months before the month of Ramadan. And that's why the early generations of Islam, when they would make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for 6 months, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would allow them to live and witness the month of Ramadan. What kind of understanding of the certainty and the certainty they had when it comes to the rewards of the month of Ramadan. They understood that the purpose of their life is to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. And the hereafter is based on the good deeds versus the bad deeds. And if our life is short, the month of Ramadan is based, or the weight of the month of Ramadan is not just one lifespan, it's more than that. Laylatul Qadr alone is over 80 years old of continuous ibadah and rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
More than the average lifespan of one person.
Naam. So the real loss is when a person loses the month of Ramadan. The Prophet ﷺ, when he was going up into the minbar, into the pulpit, and the 3 things that the Prophet ﷺ said, Ameen, and people asked, what did you say, Ameen, O Prophet of Allah? And he said that Jibreel came to him, and one of the things that the Prophet ﷺ was told that رَغِمَ أَنْفُ مْرِئٍ أَدْرَكَ رَمَضَانَ فَلَمْ يُغْفَرْ لَهُ, that he is in loss. The person that witnessed the month of Ramadan and his sins are not forgiven. This is the real loss. Why? Because there's so many different means and chances for the person to get the sins forgiven. So this is the real loss. So that's why we need to prepare for it before the month of Ramadan, by one of which getting to know the virtues of the month of Ramadan, mentioned in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and things to be done now, and to make decisions that in the month of Ramadan, inshallah ta'ala, we will do certain things, and we will learn what to do in the month of Ramadan. And the most important thing that brings all of this together is to sincerely turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with a sincere dua, truthful dua, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would allow us to witness the month of Ramadan and guide us and help us to worship Him subhanahu wa ta'ala in the most perfect way. The sincerity of such a dua is definitely of a great benefit to the Muslim, definitely.
The dua in Arabic is Allahumma ballighna Ramadan.
Naam, Allahumma ballighna Ramadan. This is just to witness the month of Ramadan. And then asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for help in matters of ibadah. The beautiful dua that the Prophet ﷺ taught Mu'adh radiallahu anhu to say after each salah. Allahumma a'inni ala dhikrika wa shukrika wa husna ibadatik. Oh Allah, help me in matters of your ibadah and being grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The month of Ramadan is a month of ibadah. You have fasting, we have the night prayer, we have recitation of the Quran, we have feeding the poor, we have remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All different types and acts of worship that either we do it or we don't do it, and when we do it, either we do it in the most perfect way, and the rewards that are given to the people, imagine one reward is multiplied by 10 to 700 times to more multiplications of that. And how can we maximize these types of rewards, and how to prepare ourselves from Laylatul Qadr? And I would like to talk about that for a couple of minutes. When it comes to Laylatul Qadr, somebody would say, but we're talking about Ramadan. No, make the goal is Laylatul Qadr. Laylatul Qadr, it's by the mercy of Allah, it's towards the end. Because physical actions that are done during the night of Laylatul Qadr, yes, it's such a rewardable thing, and it's equal to the ibadah that is over 8 years for long. But the ibadah is not just physical. There are things done by the heart. And the difference in levels of the people and the rewards is according to how their hearts are into the ibadah and with khushu' and humbleness and so on. This happens with the increase of the iman. So building up the iman so that the person would reach this level, that he would get the most perfect reward in the month of Laylatul Qadr. So how to do this is basically by doing the ibadah and being helped to do the ibadah in a proper way, and to start from now, inshallah, according to the way the Prophet says.
A sister who, speaking of Laylatul Qadr, a sister who comes in the month of Ramadan, and she's during a time of the month where she cannot pray and she cannot fast, and it happens to be during the last 10 days of Ramadan, which could be Laylatul Qadr.
No. This, the Prophet ﷺ, when Aisha radiallahu anha, she had her menses, but during Hajj, and she was upset. And the Prophet ﷺ told her that this is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordained on the daughters of Adam, on the women. So the first thing is, don't be upset. This is the qadr, the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in your heart, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that if you're not in the menses, you would do such and such, you will get the rewards of that. And then what to do? There are certain things to be done. Inshallah, we can talk about it.
After we take this phone call, and after we take the phone call, I also want to ask you regarding this. Some sisters are asking if they can take pills or something to prevent the menses from during the month of Ramadan. We'll talk about that, inshallah, after we take a phone call from Sister Fatima from Kenya. Assalamu alaikum. Sister Fatima is with us through Skype. Assalamu alaikum, sister.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you doing this afternoon? Sister Fatima, you still with us? It looks like we're having a technical difficulty. Inshallah, try to give us a call back, Sister Fatima. Sisters who try to prevent the menses by taking birth control pills or something like that, is that allowed?
Although some of the ulama, they say, as far as the halal and the haram, it's permissible as long as there's no harm, caused to the sister if she takes these pills. But why? When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had decreed such a thing on the women, and if the goal
why
is
they say because I want to worship Allah.
Right. If the concern is the rewards, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordained such a thing on women. So it's not according to what we think or according to what we desire, is according to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. If the companions radiallahu anhum, they face that, the women of the Prophet ﷺ and so on. So we're not better than them. So just be content with the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and do the acts. So Allah made it easy for you. Do the acts of worship other than the salah and other than the siyam. So many different acts of worship that we can talk about it, inshallah.
Sister Fatima is back with us. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Fatima. It looks like Sis Fatma, she's not able to get to us today, so alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin.
There's a beautiful hadith.
Yes.
The Prophet ﷺ, when he said إذا مرض العبد أو سافر كتب له ما كان يعمل مقيما صحيحا أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. حديث أبو موسى الأشعري. The Prophet ﷺ said, if a person is sick or traveling, it will be written for him what he used to do when he would be in his place and not being sick, being healthy. So the same thing the ulama they talk about when it comes to the matters of menses. If the sister, when she's not in her menses, she is worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, during the period of her menses, she will get the same rewards. So this is a relief from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. She should be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and then do the things that she can do, seeking the help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. She would get, inshallah ta'ala, even more of the rewards. There's so many things, whether it's recitation of the Quran, it's permissible, making dhikr, making sure that the family members among those who are living with the sister, that they are doing these acts of worship, waking them up for the salah, making sure that they go to the masjid to pray the 5 daily obligatory prayer in the masjid, they make the Taraweeh prayer, feeding others, fixing food for them. This is all good deeds for her to do, and not just something that is on a personal level, and making dua. And some of the sisters, when they're on the menses, they would sleep all night. No, wake up during the night, make the night tahajjud without salah, with dua, with dhikr, with reciting of the Quran. And that's why the qiyamul layl, the salah is part of it. Salah, of course, it's the best subject whatsoever, but there is the dua, there is the dhikr, there is recitation of the Quran. So this is something not to be left whatsoever, and seeking help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Let's take it back a step where we are right now. We're a little bit before Ramadan.
No.
Do you have special advice for sisters specifically when it comes to preparation for the month of Ramadan that is different from brothers?
No. To prepare or to do anything, we have to look into the life of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ used to prepare for the month of Ramadan by fasting in the month of Sha'ban. And the Prophet ﷺ would fast the whole month or the whole month but little. And this is one of the preparation for Ramadan. And especially for women, making up the days that they had from previous Ramadans, this is the time to do it before the beginning of the month of Ramadan.
And that's what Aisha radiallahu anha used to do.
So she used to do that in the month of Sha'ban. So fasting during Sha'ban, opposite to what some people might think, I need to eat a lot before the month of Ramadan, so that when the month of Ramadan comes, I'm satisfied with eating and so on. It's the total opposite. Fast and the night prayer and reciting Quran. The things that we want to do in the month of Ramadan, start doing it now and be patient with it, so that a person, when the month of Ramadan comes, you're not going to start something new, you already started it before that.
After we take this phone call, inshallah, I want to ask you about the practical side of preparation when it comes to the daily affairs. Should the sisters go shopping right now, or should they wait till the beginning of Ramadan? Should they start making food and keep it in the fridge? We'll see what advice we have for that, inshallah. Sister Salwa from Saudi Arabia, Assalamu alaikum.
Hello?
Yes, Sister Salwa, go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sister Salwa, go ahead with your question, please.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Go ahead with your question.
Can you hear me, Brother Ossama?
I can hear you very well. Go ahead with your question, sister.
Okay. I have 3 questions. Maybe they are not all pertaining to Ramadan. Can I ask them?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Okay. I have, tomorrow, inshallah, is 13th of Sha'ban. Can we fast the 3 white days, 13th, 14th, and 15th, or is it bid'ah? And then my second question is, the reward for men in Jannah, they're saying there will be hur. What about the females? What about the sisters? And my third question is, the criteria to choose a wife, it is beauty, wealth, status, or virtue. What about the husband? What is the criteria to be followed to choose a proper husband?
Sounds good. Barakallahu feek, Sister Salwa. Thank you so much. Fasting the 13th, 14th, and 15th of Sha'ban, is that a sunnah? Like the Prophet ﷺ used to fast on the 13th, 14th, and 15th of the Hijri month? No. Or is it a bid'ah, as in only fasting the 15th day of Sha'ban?
This is definitely the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And he mentioned ﷺ that fasting the 3 white days, 13th and 14th and 15th, if you fast these 3 days as if you fasted the whole month. So definitely it's a virtuous thing. The issue why some people say the word bid'ah in this, it's with regarding to the 15th of Sha'ban. If somebody thinks there's a special virtue in fasting the 15th of Sha'ban only, this is not from the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. But if a person fasted because the month of Sha'ban is a good month to fast, because the Prophet ﷺ used to do that, and the 15th being one of the white days, definitely this is a good thing. So, but specializing or making the 15th of Sha'ban a special day, this is not from the way of the Prophet ﷺ when it comes to matters of
Barakallahu feek. Ibrahim from Saudi Arabia, Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Ibrahim, go ahead, sister.
Yeah, Sheikh, I want to ask one question to Sheikh Zidan.
Yes, go ahead, sister.
Yeah, my daughter is 12 years old. Alhamdulillah, she has completed her entire memorization of the Quran. Can she lead me this Ramadan for Taraweeh prayer in house? And can I gather other ladies also at my house for the Taraweeh Salah?
How old is she again, sister?
Pardon?
How old is she again, your daughter?
12 years. She's 12 years old. She has completed, Alhamdulillah, the entire Quran. Can she lead me in this Taraweeh Salah?
MashaAllah.
And can I call other ladies of my own building to join me? Thank you, Sheikh.
You're welcome. Barakallahu feek. We'll go ahead and answer that, and then we'll go back to the other questions from Sister.
First, mashallah, this is a great thing for somebody to finish the Quran. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala
at 12 years old, mashallah.
Bless her and make it happen to all of the Muslims, and we can, take care of the Quran like that. The question is, yes, it's permissible for women to pray together as jama'ah. And in that case, she won't be standing in front of them. The imam, if a woman is leading the salah. By the way, some of the ulama, when they said this is not good for women to do that, but the authentic opinion that it's permissible, since the Prophet ﷺ ordered Waraqa to lead her household in the salah. So a woman leading women, this is permissible. And to stand in the middle of the line, not to stand in front of them, but to stand with them in the same line in the middle of it, and she will be the imam. And she can call other sisters to pray with them. There is no harm whatsoever. This is even better. The prayer of the woman in her home is better than praying in the masjid even.
Jazakallah khair. Another question from Sister Salwa. I believe some sisters ask this question not out of need but out of jealousy. They say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given the men in Jannah the hur al-ain. How about the women?
First, if a person enters Jannah, there is no misery, there is no jealousy, there is no hard feelings, there is nothing whatsoever. All of these different attitudes or feelings that we have on the face of earth, it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one that created it in us. Once a person put his foot in Jannah, all of these types of feelings and jealousies and all that, it's removed totally. So the first thing is, we should not be concerned. The person will be having the ultimate joy without even a person can ever imagine. No ears have heard, no eyes have seen, no hearts have ever imagined, right? So there's no need for us to be concerned about it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most merciful. But what's for women, as mentioned in the revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if the woman is married, she will be, and her husband, both they enter Jannah, she will be for her husband. And if she was married to more than one person, one died and she married another one and so on, and they all enter Jannah, right? She will be with the one that has the best of manners, right? So
it's not that she'll be with the last person that she was married to?
Yes, if she dies while they're still married, she will be with the last person, yes.
So for example, she marries the first person.
No.
The first brother, he passes away.
No.
She gets married to the second brother, and then she passes away.
No.
Therefore, in Jannah, she'll be married to the second.
Everybody enters Jannah, yes.
The second brother.
Second one. But again, all of these details, right, it's not something that should concerns us. What concerns us is to enter Jannah. Right? As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَمَنْ زُحْزِحَ عَنِ النَّارِ وَأُدْخِلَ الْجَنَّةَ فَقَدْ فَازَ. Those who are pushed away from the hellfire and they enter Jannah, they are winners. Right? And anything that comes into our mind that we see in this world that we live in, this world is deficient. This world has so many things that won't exist in Jannah. Jannah is the ultimate joy.
Gives you a feeling that person barely escaped hellfire.
Right. So the concern, mashallah, is just to enter Jannah. And then there's no misery and there's no...
And the question about sisters, because a lot of sisters don't know this piece of information, that they would, if they're married more than one person, in Jannah they would be the wife of the last person that they were married to.
Right. No.
Yeah. Okay. Jazakallah khair. Okay, the third question is, the sister was saying Islam makes it very clear for a man when it comes to criteria for choosing the woman to marry. Does Islam also give the same types of criteria or similar types of criterion for picking a husband?
Definitely. The Prophet ﷺ said, إِذَا جَاءَكُمْ مَنْ تَرْضَوْنَ دِينَهُ وَخُلُقَهُ فَزَوِّجُوهُ. That if comes to you a man that you're satisfied with his religion and his manners,
how about his looks?
Then get him married.
How about the way he looks?
The looks is definitely important when it comes to matters of al-qabul, which is the acceptance. So that means the Prophet ﷺ, when he ordered the man to look at the woman that he wanted to marry, and the same thing the woman would, she would look at him. And if the acceptance or the chemistry is there, then mashallah they go forward. If she doesn't feel comfortable, then she doesn't have to be, she's not to be forced to marry someone that she doesn't feel comfortable being with. So looks is important, right, for both, but when it comes to matters of acceptance, because it's something that is relevant from one to the other.
Yes.
But as far as the criteria, the Prophet ﷺ, when he said that تُنْكَحُ الْمَرْأَةُ لِأَرْبَعٍ, that women are married for 4 reasons. The Prophet ﷺ, as some of the ulama, they said, he stated the fact that people get married for these reasons.
So he's saying these are the 4 main
Right.
reasons that people, all people,
Right.
they get married for.
He was not telling the people get married to the sisters, those who
1,
have
2,
these
3,
things.
4.
But then at the end, the Prophet ﷺ, encouraging the men to get married to the one that is virtue, the one that is religious. So the same thing for the women is the one that is satisfied with his religion and his manners, which is a very important thing. And the acceptance is from both of us when they see each other.
And in a previous episode, we talked about why the Prophet ﷺ said manners also with religion, even though manners are part of religion, in order to emphasize its importance. Alhamdulillah. Okay, let's take a question that we got through Facebook. A sister says, a Muslim man marries a Muslim girl, but never pays the mahr, takes loans on all her jewelry without her permission, takes lots of money as a loan from his in-laws. His family supports them. They say it's the wife's duty to stay calm and be patient with whatever her husband does. What does Islam say in such a situation? Please explain on TV.
Well, first, there's no such a thing that they get married without mahr. Then there's a fault in the marriage. He has to give a mahr, anything.
I guess maybe he said that there's a mahr, but then it was a mu'akhir, and he never paid it.
So this is something that is on him, right? It's a responsibility that he has to give. Some people think that it's when he dies or when divorce happens. No, it becomes a loan that he has to pay that loan. And whenever he has the means, then he has to give that. It's the right of the wife on him. The issue is of keep getting or taking loans from others. This is sometimes turns to an addicted thing. And sometimes it has an evil reasons behind it, and sometimes it's not. So the person has to be sincere in trying to fix this issue. And some people, they take loans without the intention of returning it back, which is a sin. So when it comes to if the concern is what the wife should do, she should advise her husband and try to make it easy for him, trying to help him, making sure that he increases his iman and remind him that these are rights of others. So her job is to basically advise him and increase his iman and so on. But if he is making his salah, there's no valid reason for them to be separated from one another, then she should be patient. And being patient is not a negative thing. It's a positive thing, meaning that she is patient with him, trying to help him and try to increase his iman and so on. But again, if there's no valid reason for them to be separated, then seeking help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the better benefit being together, if they're children, to raise the children and so on and so forth.
I want to give you some good news. I read a comment on Facebook last week. I know we talk a lot about a lot of problems and issues, especially when it comes to between husband and a wife. But I got a comment last week, a sister, she said that my husband is a changed man after watching Dear Sisters.
MashaAllah.
So alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.
MashaAllah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep them this way.
Ameen.
We have to be watchful of the ways of the shaitan, in which he makes us slip away after some
It's a
time.
program dedicated to sisters, and our brother was affected also, alhamdulillah. She says that he's a changed man, and imagine a wife actually saying that about her husband. That's a great thing, alhamdulillah. All right, sister Enza, she says, she's from Pakistan. She says, I'm 18 years old and I live in Pakistan. I'm currently in my senior year and plan to join college in the United States this August. I've been accepted by many universities and I have a strong desire to study in a big college. Obviously, she's doing very well in her studies, mashallah. However, studying in the US worries me. I fear that the environment of the country and the college might adversely affect me and weaken my faith. Also, I've heard that you lose your routine of saying prayers regularly because either you don't get time for them or you don't find a proper place for them. Since I have just started learning more and practicing my religion properly, I was not a good Muslim before. I do not want to be misguided or go back to my old personality that was of being an ignorant Muslim. I recently started covering my head, wearing hijab, and I do not want to leave it because of the American people. All this worries me a lot. At the same time, being accepted at my dream college has made my desires grow more. I want to keep my religion at the top priority. Please give me some advice as what I can do to remain a good practicing Muslim and a bright student, both at the same time.
May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for her. And this is a test. And mashallah, without repeating what has been mentioned, in many parts of our life we will be tested, whether to hold fast to our religion or something that is opposite to that. Most of the time, things are easy by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Prophet or some of the early generations, when they said, "Man taraka shay'an lillah, awada Allah khayran min." Whoever leaves something for the sake of Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make it easy for such a person. So this is a principle that we should never ever forget. The point here mentioned, first of all, for a woman to travel alone to another country, this is not permissible. She has to have a mahram with her. So if this is not there, then definitely this is not a good idea for her to do that. The other thing is, when it comes to going to an environment where she won't find too many help when it comes to increasing one's iman, especially the environment of the college life, when many young people are just following their desires and so on, and she is a Muslim sister and so on. Yes, some, mashallah, can be steadfast. We're not talking about the exceptions, but the norm of any human being, that we might slip away. So definitely the advice is not to go forward, but to, in Muslim countries, mashallah, there's many different ways in which she can increase her knowledge or go to college or whatever in the proper way, in the proper environment, to save her religion. And again, if she leaves that for the sake of Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would replace it definitely with something better. Just have the good expectations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and choose your religion first. Whenever it's two opposite things, which one to choose? Definitely choose what pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Your life definitely will be better, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair. My dear sisters, we're going to take a short break, inshallah. When we come back, we'll take more of your phone calls, your questions through Skype also, and we'll take more of your Facebook comments, inshallah. So please stay with us.
Dear sisters, let us get closer to Allah. Dear sisters, let us learn of Rasulullah.
Tech Talk. We're going to look how to create a website and which Islamic websites to actually visit. What inspired you to create your own website?
One of the challenges that we face every day, the site or the application should be accessible worldwide. I remember when I was younger, one of my friends asked me to convince his father to get him a desktop, even the laptop. If you compared both of them in terms of cost, laptop roughly cost twice the money if you compared it with the desktop.
Hackers, the word hackers, most of the youth people are very interesting about that word. They say, hey, I'd like to be a hacker, because there is a type of hacker doing great job. We call them white hat hacker.
Fun for everyone.
3, 2, 1.
What will I be when I grow up? What will I be when I grow up? What will I be when I grow up?
The firefighter uses what to control fire? Water or rocks? Now these two teams go head to head on pulling the blue rope. Now if one person goes over this line right here, the other team loses. Very simple rules. This challenge is worth 5 points.
What will I be when I grow up? What will I be when I grow up? What will I be when I grow up as a Muslim man?
Fun is for everyone, so get ready to have some fun.
Check out these cool competitions between kids. It's important to have fun, and it's also important to be a good sport. So tune in to Fun for Everyone. You don't want to miss it.
What will I be when I grow up as a Muslimah?
Dear sisters, let us get closer to Allah. Dear sisters, let us learn of Rasulullah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear sisters. Welcome back to our program, Dear Sisters. Program dedicated just for you so that we can answer your questions, inshallah. Anything relating to women in general, anything relating to relationships, family relationships, relationships with your husband, relationship with your children, relationship with your father. And we have all these types of questions with us right here. And of course, we're also waiting for your phone calls, inshallah. Give us a call at 002-02-38-555-248 or 249, inshallah, or through Skype at Huda_TV. Huda_TV, inshallah. Sheikh Ibrahim, we have a kind of a heartbreaking question here from Sister Maryam. She says, Assalamu alaikum, brother. Please, I need prayer for my husband. I'm always trying to make him happy while he's making me sad. If it wasn't haram in Islam, I would have killed myself.
The advice is turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most merciful. And the reason why people might fall into these types of problems and miseries is that they are away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised, من عمل صالحا من ذكر أو أنثى وهو مؤمن فلنحيينه حياة طيبة. Whoever do righteous good deeds, whether it's male or female, but they are believers, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give them a goodly life. And in the hereafter they will be rewarded. So a goodly life, a life of contentment, a life of happiness, it's there. But we need to do the righteous good deeds. So repenting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and understanding the purpose of our life. The purpose of our life is not to be physically happy with some physical things that we define what happiness is. Our purpose of our life is to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have a mission on the face of earth. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most wise. If a sister is afflicted by someone, a husband that is not taking care of her, it's meant to be that way in that situation that she's in, so that she worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by being patient, for example, by being steadfast on her religion if the relationship is calling her to disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is meant because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most wise. But when we give up and when we define for ourselves the type of life that we want to live, this is not in our capacity. We are nothing but human beings, slave servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
In this case, the sister, she's asking a question that I feel a lot of sisters ask, which basically is this: I'm giving, and I'm giving, and I'm giving.
Right.
And I'm not getting, and I'm not getting, and I'm not getting.
Right. Very beautifully said. Why are you giving? Why are you being kind to your husband? If you're being kind to your husband so that your husband is being kind to you, this is not what we want. This is not what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us that you're being kind to whoever you are kind to, because this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered you. Seeking the rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the hereafter. You don't want nothing from your husband, right? Definitely this will bring, supposed to be, what is good from the husband. But say if it didn't happen, you're seeking help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're seeking rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not easy, but that's what comes with the iman, with the faith. And seeking rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's never wasted. If the unseen is lifted, right? Imagine the unseen is lifted, and the sister, the more she's being kind, she would see her palaces in Jannah are being built, and this tree is for her, and this place is for her. How would then the life will be on the face of earth? It would be a life of joy, right? But this is the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that the unseen is not lifted now, and this is the test that we are in. So be patient and seek rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Increase your iman. Make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and witness that this is what is meant for you to elevate your levels in the hereafter by being patient, and definitely stay away from all these ways of shaitan trying to take the person away from the deen completely, whether it's killing oneself, which is definitely a major sin that can lead to kufr wal-'adhu billah, disbelief and being ungrateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Look at the good things in one's life, that you're still alive, that if you have health, to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. Look at the amount of miseries that are all over the places of earth and so on, and know for sure that each person has their own weakness and deficiency. Some people are afflicted by their legs get cut off, for example. Another person is blind. a sister with her husband, a husband with his wife. So life is not the place of everlasting happiness. This is not this life. It's in the hereafter. So just be patient and seek rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Seek help from people of knowledge. Ask the advice of people what to do. Advise the husband. Try to get somebody to advise him. But never give up.
Jazakallah khair. Another type of very important relationship is the relationship of a daughter with her father.
No.
A lot of sisters, even after they get married, they expect to continue their relationship with their fathers. And they actually expect it to get better. So this sister, she's asking, what are the rights of the daughter after marriage from her father? What should the role of her father be? Because she sees that her father is really absent from her life right now. And she's also asking, does his role end by me getting married, by him handing me off to my husband? Assuming even that her husband is treating her well. It's not like she's having fights with her husband or anything like that. She's asking, are there any financial rights? Any symbolic rights, anything with the heart, especially, she's saying especially that her mother has passed away.
No, definitely we have many different rights in our lives. So you can just name any relationship and there has to have some rights back and forth. So there's rights of her father on her and there's the rights of her onto her father. She's asking about the rights, her rights basically, which is a good thing, but I would advise her, make sure that you fulfill his rights. That's what should concern you more, because that's what you're going to be asked in the Day of Judgment. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Day of Judgment, He won't ask you why your father didn't fulfill your rights. No, He will ask you what did you do to your father. So again, this is the concern. Fulfill his rights by being kind to him, visit him, do whatever it takes to be kind to him and so on. But the rights of your husband takes precedence over the rights of the father if there are two opposite rights being conflicted here. And mashallah, there's no need for any conflict, they both go together. But when it comes to the father, definitely he continues to be the father and he is the guardian for his daughter, and after she's married, the husband is responsible, but he continues to be kind to her and to continue to be when it comes to financial responsibilities, it's the responsibility of the husband. But of course, if the daughter is poor, right, and the father, although it's not his responsibility, but out of his kindness and being the father, he would help the daughter and even help her husband if he has the means to do so, giving gifts and so on, visiting them, she visit him, but she has more of the weight of the rights because he's the father, right? And usually in that case, he's getting to be an older human being.
Yes.
So he needs to be taken care of more. His emotions changes. He expects from his daughters and his sons that they would take care of him more than he would take care of them. He took care of you when you were little, and how many things that he did. And remember and go back with your memory when you were young and playing, and he comes from work and he brings things to you. And who's the one that raised you by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and spent it on you all these years, right? So sometimes the children are, I don't want to say not grateful. It's a good thing that they're concerned, of course, about everything.
Say forgetful. They're forgetful.
So make sure that you be extremely kind to him, and that's how he would be definitely being kind to you. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy.
I mean, another sister is also asking about the father. Also, her mother has passed away, and she's saying that her father was good to her before her mother passed away, but now he has totally changed. All he thinks about is getting remarried, and he's forgetting his children.
It is his right to get married, and the children should understand that very well, and they should not be of any barrier between them or between the father and getting married. They should help him, and they should be happy with the father, with his choices and so on. And at the same time, again, if we're talking about the questioner, and the questioner is the one that is listening to us or wanting to know the answer, be more concerned of what you do towards the father and be extremely kind to him. And maybe there is something that happened from the children that he feels that way, and try to sit with him and talk with him in a nice way. What happened, why you're changed with us, and be extremely kind. You're not being nice to him so that he's nice to you. You're being nice to him because he is the father. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered us to do so. And again, have some understanding because of the age factor, the fact that he does not have a wife anymore, that the children maybe are not home anymore. So feeling for him, it's something that is more important when it comes to this. And maybe he's in fault, of course. So whether he is in fault or not, just make sure that you treat him in a nice way and advise him.
I agree with you. And I think a lot of youth, you say people, maybe they've been married for a few years, they're maybe in their mid-20s or so, they don't understand and they don't realize that their parents are getting older. And when they get older, with all due respect to the parents, they're actually returning to becoming children. You know, maybe they're not always in control of their emotions like they used to be. Maybe they embarrass you in front of your husband, for example, or in front of even your own children. Maybe you know, they can't understand that you have kids and they're playing around and all of these things. They could deal with you when you were younger, but now, you know, this is too much of a headache for them. So a lot of people, subhanAllah, they think negatively of their parents. They say the shaitan makes them say, oh, I'm not going to take my kids and go to my dad or to my mom because they always complain that I'm bringing my kids. And they don't realize that this person is becoming older.
And you know what? What's in the Quran? Do you find in the Quran the order to the parents to be kind to the children? Or the opposite? It's the opposite. For the children to be kind to the parents. Why? Because there's no parent would ever have hard feelings toward the children in the evil sense.
Yes, like my dad tells me, he tells me I'm forced to love you. If I had the choice, I wouldn't, but what can I do? It's my obligation, I'm forced to do it, it's not in my hands. If I had the chance to not love you, I wouldn't.
So the more you look into the details of the situation, you would find it's the fault of the children more. No.
Jazakallah khair. Sister Fatima from Saudi Arabia, Assalamu alaikum. Sister Fatima is joining us through Skype. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Fatima. It looks like the phone has been cut off, so inshallah Sister Fatima will try to give us a call back. You talked a lot about patience, and if I can count one word that you've repeated throughout these episodes the most, it would be patience. Because obviously we're talking about problems, so patience is the key. Give us practical steps, because the word is much easier said than done. Give us practical steps on how can a sister become patient.
Being patient when it comes to relationships means that you fulfill the duties that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered you to do, that you stay away from what is haram and not permissible for you to do in relationships, and to be patient with the calamities or the tests or the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that happens to you throughout your life or in the relationship. So patience is not a negative thing that you sit back and you just wait for something. No, what did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala order you with regard to the husband, for example? He has certain rights. Make yourself blind a little bit when it comes to that is he fulfilling my rights or not? Put this aside. You will be asked about what did you do towards him. And the same thing for the husband, right? So fulfill his rights, because this is the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So as human beings, we treat each other when it comes to relationships as a rewardable type of relationships. The Prophet
kind of a business.
The Prophet said, "Laysa al-wasl bil mukafi." The one that is kind to his kin and kith is the one that rewards them. Everybody would do this if he has some decency. If people treat him nice, he will treat them nice. But this is not the real test. The real test is when they are mean to you and you respond by being kind to them. How many people on the face of earth would do that?
And that's not really a sign of weakness, as a lot of people
Definitely, because you're doing that for the sake of Allah. You're not doing that for them to be kind to you. No, you're doing that for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. And that's the only attitude that would keep the person doing good. So being patient in doing that. You have to step on your pride and ego so many times because you're trying to fulfill the orders of Allah. And never think that this would humiliate you. Never. Because if you're doing something for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it would definitely elevate you. And you never know what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's the one that changes the hearts. It's not us. We cannot even control our own hearts.
It's not a mathematical equation.
Right? Let alone the hearts of others. Right? So just being patient in fulfilling the orders of Allah. And relationships, being patient with establishing the salah and the zakah, your personal level of acts of worship, because it affects your relationship. So being patient in doing that in the most perfect way. Being patient in staying away from sins. If it's relationships, treating again one another, they treat us bad, we treat them bad. It's haram for you to treat someone bad in a sinful way. And dhulm or injustice is never ever permissible under any condition. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as He said in the Hadith Qudsi, يَا عِبَادِي إِنِّي حَرَمْتُ الظُّلْمَ عَلَى نَفْسِي وَجَعَلْتُهُ بَيْنَكُمْ مُحَرَّمًا فَلَا تَظَلَمُوا. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it not permissible for him to commit injustice, because He's the most just subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He made it haram for people to commit injustices, so do not commit injustices. So as the rule is, if somebody treats you with injustice, it is not permissible to retaliate with injustice. It's permissible to get your right, yes, but it's your right with justice, not with injustice. So that needs patience also.
Beautiful way to end talking about patience. Very quickly in 10 seconds, because that's all we have. There's a special type of patience called sabrun jameel, beautiful patience. What is that in 10 seconds?
The sabr al-jameel is when it's patience without complaints. Patience without complaining, without saying, I've been patient for so long. Be patient and seek help from Allah, and be extremely kind, and nobody know that you're really suffering while you are enduring the patience.
Alhamdulillah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us patience and grant us beautiful patience also, inshallah. Jazakallah khairan. Thank you so much for all your advice. Barakallah feek. My dear sisters in Islam, thank you so much for being with us here this evening. We hope it was of benefit, inshallah. We'll see you next week, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Until then, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Dear sisters, let us get closer to Allah. Dear sisters, let us learn of Rasulullah. Dear sisters, let's make the future bright. Dear sisters, mothers, daughters, and wives. Dear sisters, let us get closer to Allah. Dear sisters, let us learn of Rasulullah. Dear sisters, let's make the future bright. Dear sisters, mothers, daughters, and wives. Dear sisters, let us get closer to Allah. Dear sisters, let us learn of Rasulullah. Dear sisters, let's make the future bright. Dear sisters, mothers, daughters, and wives.